With Elden Ring's first expansion, Shadow of the Erdtree, finally out, many players are getting to grips with this new sliver of Souls-like content. With over 100 new weapons and 8 new weapon types among them, there's tons of new stuff for fans to wet their whistle with. One such example of a new weapon type caught the eye of our very own Joel Franey. In a hands-on preview before the DLC's launch, martial arts really spoke to him. More specifically, gloves that imbue the dry leaf arts, which shake things up a little bit for a FromSoft game. In his article, Joel gave a couple of examples of how utilizing the dry leaf arts can aid in leveling the playing field against Elden Ring's behemoths. Whenever a burly knight would advance on me with a sword drawn, I'd roll under the first swing and come up in a barrage of melee strikes that sent him reeling and left him wide open to have his heart ripped out of his chest, Temple of Doom style. Other times I'd go sprinting into the Sepulchre Temple and announce myself to the slathering horror squatting inside with a flying kick to the head. Sounds like an utter laugh. But even within our own offices, this martial merriment has brought derision. Our social media editor, Serena Cherry, has many thoughts on this, and most of them in disagreement. So, I spoke to both, and let them hash it out. Welcome to Soapbox. Well, thank you both for joining me. Joel, Serena. Why don't we start with Joel? Can you tell me a little bit more about the martial arts and why you enjoyed them so much?
So there's a few versions. The two I very much got along with were the dry leaf arts, which are the sort of handheld, quick punching method, and Dane's footwork, which is basically the kicking version. I took to them because I've always liked quick weapons in From Software games. I like the versatility, I like the ability to be very slick and on the fly. It gives you a lot more space to improvise when you're not charging a heavy attack for 20 minutes. It incorporates very well into a build that's all, rolling and dodging and general acrobatics. And I just thought I like the visual. I like dressing like a normal schlub in fantasy games because I think that speaks to like the average man idea. Like, hey, humble origins, come from nothing. Don't go in wearing gold plate armor because you look like a douche. I think it's very, very cool to effectively walk into a room unarmed with a bunch of swordsmen and then walk out and be absolutely fine. Yeah. I love the aesthetic of that, and I was glad that, while they're probably not the best weapon in the game, I think that aesthetically, the martial arts did something for me that none of the other weapons entirely did.
Would you say it's a bit of a big departure from kind of FromSoft's normal MO?
I can definitely think of things that were similar. There was a set of sort of Wolverine-like claws you get in the core Elden Ring game that I thought was that I had a lot of fun with. I think these are definitely at the end of a spectrum that's like they're at that extreme, and on whatever scale the other opposite end is the giant hammers that wind up over sort of a news cycle before coming down eventually.
I guess the ultimate question is: would you suggest kind of seasoned players try like an entire playthrough with just this kind of weapon bracket?
I mean, you could definitely do a martial arts build. I've seen people doing them, and they will work, especially if you're good with them. Like my thing is they're really fun to use. So I was really happy that they don't suck. Like they're maybe not the best ever.
Yeah.
But they're good enough to justify their inclusion in the game, and you can make smart choices that make them pretty potent.
Like a bit of a different type of fun that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Serena, you've got some other thoughts, though. Am I right?
I do indeed. I mean, firstly, I guess I have questions, really, about the sort of the martial arts approach in Elden Ring. Mainly my first one being when I first got the gloves, I got the Red Bear's Claw, and I noticed the attacks feature a lot of jumping, which is not good for boss fights or enemies near a cliff. So, Joel, have you ever fallen off a cliff using the gloves?
I haven't. They do absolutely, the Red Bear's Claws have you springing in the air. That is a risk. They are far harder to control. With the dry leaf, I never had a problem with getting launched across the battlefield. They're much more what's immediately in front of you, throwing out sort of combos, whereas the Red Bear's Claws are a little bit more kind of meant to evoke that idea of a frenzy, where you launch yourself at something, slightly putting self-preservation at the back of your mind.
That's exactly it. I found the Red Bear's Claw just felt so wild. It felt like my character suddenly...
I mean, that's arguably working as intended, considering the idea behind it.
Definitely. But then coming back to sort of the dry leaf arts, I noticed it does come automatically with an Ash of War attached. But another question I have is, can you change what that Ash of War is?
There's a few you can put on them, but honestly, the Palm Strike, which is the default, I love. Which is this kind of building of ki in your palm as a chargeable attack, and then when you let it go, there's like a sort of AoE in front of you that sends opponents just flying and does a respectable amount of damage. And you can charge it up as much as you want to a degree. So if someone's going to catch you unawares, you can trigger it early for a lesser effect. So while you can change it, I almost wouldn't recommend it, or at the very least, out of all the Ash of Wars that are good contenders, the Palm Strike has to be up there, because it will just send enemies away like bowling pins. It's great.
Wow. And which bosses did you use that Ash of War on?
I mean, it's much better on people with issues with like the Black Jail Knight, so those smaller human level enemies, it does, really sort of bowl them over. It's a lot harder, obviously, on something big like the Hippo. But even then, what you lose on the Ash of War, you gain on the Fighting Fist, because obviously they're so fast and build so well towards maneuverability. But when the giant jaws are coming at you, you definitely want to be light on your feet, because a shield isn't going to quite do as much as you'd hope.
I was just picturing you sending that hippo flying through the air, and that is something I would like to see.
Like an Asterix comic, I wish.
I've been using Milady against the hippo.
Yes, that's a popular weapon.
Yeah.
I can't in good conscience wield anything called that, I think. It is a very good weapon. I just can't get over the fact that it's called Milady. I really can't. Sadly, there is no matching Trilby helmet to pair with it. No, I mean, on a mechanical level, it is an unbelievable sword, and it is probably better than the martial arts, at least certainly on paper in terms of damage.
I guess there's just so many things that I would miss with not playing with like swords and stuff, though. Even I'm a sword and shield gal, purely for things like the riposte. I mean, I guess you don't have that when you're using the martial arts, right?
No, I don't think you can equip them with parry, but I mean, obviously they batter through an enemy's poise, and you can set them up for a critical strike fairly well. And I especially love that with the martial arts, the critical strike is just they drop to one knees and you punch them in the nose as hard as you can and just knock them over backwards. There's something so blunt about that approach that I just can't help but respect it, when someone with a flaming sword is being annoying you for 20 minutes and you just spread his nose across his face with a well-thrown haymaker.
Just bonk him on the nose like a naughty dog.
Why don't you just play Tekken?
Because I'm very bad at fighting games.
As someone who abhors fighting games, yeah, I'm with Joe on this one.
In Tekken, I'll lose. In Elden Ring, I'm winning.
It kind of sounds like it's maybe martial arts isn't something you can kind of devote an entire playthrough, but it definitely adds like an interesting element to the arsenal as a whole.
If you're a very min-maxi player, there are probably weapons that are more exploitable for optimum results. But as a kind of surprisingly universal option, and for something that is just hard to beat in terms of how fun they are to use, I will definitely recommend the martial arts every time.
Can I tell you something that's going to put you off, or maybe draw you to Milady as a weapon even more?
Mm-hmm.
I actually have nicknamed mine Taylor Swift because it's very long and very light and very swift.
Milady Taylor Swift does sound something like you'd see in the bowels of Reddit.
I think I have seen that tweet a few times.
I'm going to die on Milady's hill, I'm afraid.
I've definitely seen that on Reddit before.
Yeah.